Hey, welcome back. It's now the middle of April and everything is starting to come up into bloom. I've got so many tulips that are up and in flower. It is one of my absolute favourite times of the year, April going into May, because everything's so lush and green and it's putting on this enormous surge of growth. I absolutely love April for that reason, and there's a lot to see today, but I do have quite a bit of gardening jobs to do. So if you want to stick around and help me with some gardening, stay tuned. If you would rather shuffle on for the tour, I'll put a time stamp below so you can skip out the gardening bits. But yeah, I've got quite a few jobs to do today because I need to tie in my clematis that's growing like crazy. I need to plant some potatoes in my pots. I've also got some plants to feed, my potted plants that need a bit of a boost this time of the year. I've got seedlings to prick out, but I might not film that bit because it's quite time consuming. And also a bit of tidying up. I've been edging my grass paths. I don't know if you can see along there. And I've got lots of clumps of turf everywhere where I've been cutting it back to stop it from creeping out into my borders. So yeah, there's a fair few jobs to do today because it's the busyness of April. My polytunnel is also bursting with seedlings and plants. It's a very exciting but chaotic time of the year and I just love it. So yeah, best crack on with a few jobs, so let's get going. So you can see my nice crisp edge along my grass path there, and lots of lumps of grass dumped everywhere. And I've done around, well, most of the main beds, and I've started to go around my strawberry cages because it's starting to creep into the strawberry cage, which I don't want it to do. And also it's a bit more work with the strimmer to get that close to the bed. So I'm giving it a nice edge, but as you can see I haven't yet finished. So I've just got that little bit left to do. So this is the tool for the job. It's called an edging iron, and essentially you just go around and chop off the extra bits of grass that you don't want, going in as straight a line as you can, and then giving it a little bit of a tuck. And then you should be able to quite easily prise it out from the ground. Like so. The only issue with this section here is that all these chunks that I'm pulling out are absolutely riddled with bindweed. So I'm a bit hesitant to put all of this lovely turf into the compost bin because things like this will probably survive, and I don't then want to be later down the line spreading bindweed around my allotment in the compost that it makes. So I'm just going to think hard about what I do with that, but I might end up either pulling as much of it out as I can and then composting it separately, perhaps in those big builder's bags that you get, you know, the big sacks that you get like turf and wood chip, not turf, compost and wood chip delivered in, so that it's at least away from my main compost. But yeah, this means I'll be able to trim this area and hopefully also trim any bindweed that it creeps up this side, as you probably know if you've been here a while. And at least if I can just keep on trimming it, then eventually it might just lose its vigour. And I mean, I'd love for it to give up, but that's probably never going to happen because bindweed never gives up. But at least I'm getting out a lot of the roots this way. How's my line? Is it looking fairly straight? I know towards the end of the day yesterday I was doing the path that's down the middle. It's not quite that straight. You can, if you're doing it properly, use a bit of string to make sure you've got a good line. But I tend to just like to crack on with my jobs and I don't tend to do that. Just get out some of that bindweed. Yeah, and I did go around my paths yesterday actually, and I trimmed them. So the grass is now nicely cut, and that smell of freshly cut grass, oh my gosh, it was so invigorating because I hadn't smelt that yet this year. So that's that one done. So these are a lot of the chunks that I've been removing from the strawberry area. and you can just see it's everywhere. So for now I'm gonna put it all into a big wheelbarrow so that I can go through it at a later date and then compost it all separately. And that's how you should actually compost turf. You back to back it, so you put the grass end upwards like that, and then on the next layer you put the grass end downwards like that, and you compost it on its own like that, and it'll make a nice lovely sort of topsoil once it's all rotted down and decomposed. And if it isn't bindweed at this end, it's ground elder, which is just as bad. Now that that's pretty much done, I'm going to be feeding some of my plants. Now, I try to stay as organic as possible on my allotment, and I don't like using synthetic fertilisers, but the only place I do use them is for my potted plants that could really do with that boost. So I've got a potted ginkgo tree, I've got a potted rose, I've also got my blueberries. Last year I gave them a feed and it really did help put on a lot of growth. So I'll be doing a little bit of feeding now. So we're just in the shed trying to find what we need. So I've got 3 different feeds here. This is the afterplant rose feed with biostimulant that I'm going to be using on my newly planted roses, because I've got not 1 but 2 new roses now that I've planted. This one is perfect for my blueberries because they are acidic loving plants, so that's more adapted for them. And then I've got this all-purpose one that I'll be using on my ginkgo tree because it's going to stay in that pot. It's a tree and it needs a nice slow release fertilizer, so that's what I'll be using this one on. This is my ginkgo tree right here. Oh, hasn't yet put its leaves out, but it's got lots of nice juicy fat buds ready to put out them beautiful leaves that I absolutely obsess over. Beautiful little butterfly shape. As with any fertilizer, always follow the instructions. I'm going to use a very small handful and just put it on the surface of this pot. Because you've got to think that this is a tree and it's going to need more nutrients than what's in this topsoil in the compost, and that should help keep it in good active growth without stunting it too much. Look at those buds just about to burst. But yeah, if you've got big plants in small pots, or something like a bay lollipop that's been in there for years and years and years, they might start to look a bit sick and yellow if you haven't updated the compost or fed it. So it's a good idea to get down some slow release fertilizer, and springtime is the perfect time to do that. Morning, Mr. Magpie. Oh, somebody spotted the mealworm I put in the tree. I also noticed I've got a crow. Never have crows on my allotment. We've got to go up there now, so sorry Mr. Crow, but I need to feed my rose. Up here is where I've got a climbing rose, the generous gardener, in a container. Although it is a bottomless container, but I do think it needs a bit of a feed because I haven't really given it that much care, to be honest. And yeah, containers are where slow release fertilizer like this is your friend, because I do that once a year and I don't have to worry about it again. Now, whenever you're applying a liquid feed to a plant, you always want to make sure that you wet the plant first so that it can absorb the nutrients. So this is just water from my water butt. And then I'm going to add the feed to this watering can. It specifies 1 per 5 litre. Give it a mix. Where's a stick? That will do. It's So yes, this is a specially made feed for acidic loving plants such as blueberries, camellias, rhododendrons, azaleas. You don't want to be using a normal feed or a multi-purpose feed for those plants. There we go. And this plant's already got lots of gorgeous little flower buds on it. So I'm sure we're going to have a bumper year for blueberries. And lastly, for my newly planted climbing rose and a bush rose, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. Oh, there's a wood butterfly. And this, because it's going in open ground, is an organic based fertiliser. I think it's based on seaweed. And so I've only planted this about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. So I need recently planted roses, 4 caps in 4.5 litres. Apply as a root drench every 7 to 10 days. Increase to 6 caps when the buds appear. Well, I don't know if I'll be able to carry on with that routine, but I'm going to give it a good shake. So what was it, 4 caps. And the ground here is actually quite damp already, so I won't need the water prior. Just give it a really good soak. Actually going to use half a can and put the rest on my new bush rose further down here. So over here we've got a patch where I used to have some rhubarb that died a few years ago, and I thought it's the perfect spot for a new rose. So I treated myself to another rose. This one's called Roald Dahl, which is a gorgeous sort of soft orangey creamy kind of apricot colour, a bit deeper than the climber that I have up the tree, Woollerton Old Hall. And yes, I've seen Rachel from The Good Life Ain't Easy on Instagram grow this one, and I just fell in love with it, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to grow it. So I bought a bare root rose and I planted it in exactly the same way as I did with the one on the tree, and the buds I can see are just about to burst now, but it'll also benefit from an after plant feed. There we go. Potatoes! It's time to get my potatoes in the ground. Forgive me for not looking straight at you the whole time. It's incredibly bright but gorgeous, and it's actually getting quite warm. So I'm going to be growing my potatoes in buckets as I always do, and this year I'm probably going to only grow 9 pots, I think, and they're going to be in this patch here, which is going to be my prime veggie patch, as well as a patch over there. And I'm just going to do it in the same way I always do, which is to mix up some bagged compost, put in a bit of bloodfish and bone, plant the tuber, fill the pot up to the top, and that's it. I mean, I've got a full length video that's very, very popular if you want to see my potato planting method, but I love growing in pots because it's so much easier and it prevents the wireworm from getting to my potatoes, which is the main reason why I started doing this. And a lot of people ask, well, don't they crawl up from the soil and in through those holes? The answer is no. I don't think they're quite smart enough, to be honest. I've never had that situation. But you know what, I might do a test this year and plant one in the ground just to see if my soil is still riddled with, not vine weevil, wireworm, and let's perhaps do a comparison. What grows better, the soil or a pot? Sounds kind of fun, right? Now, what are the varieties that I've got this year? Because I can't even remember. Belle de Fontenay, French one, I remember that now. Java, pink fir apple, and Jazzy. Now, I think Java is the one that I spoke about in a previous video about how it's meant to be a cross between the Sarpo Mira and another one, so it's meant to be really heavy cropping. Oh, a buzzard. Reliable and disease resistant to things like blight. So I think this is going to be my new heavy cropper for potato buckets. I just hope it's as tasty as the other varieties that I grow. So mostly main crops. I've got a few second earlies, and I did actually save a few Charlottes from what I grew last year because it's my absolute favourite, and yeah, let's see how many we can fit in. I get to use my new knife. I went to a country show over Easter weekend and I bought myself a new open L knife because the one I already have is just a little bit too long. So I've got myself the number 6, which is a lovely nice pocket size and perfect for opening my compost bags. Super sharp. Oh my gosh, it's getting warm. So that's the bottom third filled with compost, and I'm just going to put a handful of bloodfish and bone, mix it in each pot. I'm going to put 2 shallots in 1 bucket. Then I've got Belle de Fontenay. You can have 2 as well. Now then, for my pots versus soil test, I'm going to use the same variety. So I've got 1 potato of Java. Oh, and I've got 1 potato of Java inside a pot. Whereas these 2 both have 2 Javas, this one has just 1. I'm not going to put any bloodfish and bone into this potted one, which is the test, and I'll put this one straight into the ground, maybe with a couple of handfuls of compost, just to try and balance out the pot and the soil. So I'm just going to dig a little hole about 6 inches deep. 1 handful of compost and then the 1 Java potato. I'll just cover it back over with that soil and now we wait. Well, that's the potatoes all in and I'm ready for a drink now, but I'll join you in a second and we'll start the tour because it's now 5:15 and even though the sunlight is gorgeous, it's definitely going to be dwindling soon and we want to see the plot whilst it's bathing in all this gorgeous spring sunlight. So I'll catch you up in just a sec for the tour. So, mid-April, let's see what's going on this absolutely gorgeous day. Well, first off, over at Grandma's border, we've got more flowers appearing day by day, honestly. This is changing so rapidly at the minute. The forget-me-nots, one of my absolute favourites, are coming up in blue and also pink. I spotted some pink ones the other day. Here they are, look, you don't see them as often. More like a lilac-y colour, that one, but there's some pinky ones right down there, look. If it'll focus, there we go. But yes, there's just so much to see. We've got alliums, these are the geraniums, blue geranium, and then some of the stars of the show. The peonies are coming. I'm so excited for the peonies, and also the roses, that's one of them. Rosa Mary Rose, looking really healthy and put so much new growth out in the last few weeks. There's just so much going on in this border, I don't know where to start. And then the primulas, and what else have we got? That's another one of the roses. And I noticed on the 3rd one that we'll come to in a second, it's already got flower buds. We've also got lots of honesty popping up. That's what the butterfly was enjoying earlier on. Oh, and apparently that bee. But here is the larger of the 3 roses. But yeah, just look at that. We're going to have roses in May probably, and quite a few by the looks of it. And there are also, yeah, loads of these peonies. I don't know if they're all going to flower. That one's definitely got a flower bud tucked away in there. I can see. Oh God, I'm so excited. And yeah, Grandma's little statue there with lots of lovely honesty around her. Oh, completely forgot. The rose. I'm sure you're all screaming at me. Well, this is the Woollerton Old Hall that I planted a few weeks ago. And you can see there the buds are just bursting now. So they're going to go into terrific growth in the next couple of weeks, I reckon. Should have some foliage next time you see it. And in case you missed the video, it's a new climbing rose that I've planted here to replace a jasmine that died. And it's going to climb up and over my old dead plum tree where I have the bird feeders. There we are, all the potatoes planted. Hello! And this is going to be my main veggie patch. We're going to have lots of spinach and salads, beetroots growing in here, and I've got a bit of an idea actually. So I'm actually thinking of growing quite a few of my veggies in containers in this patch here this year, for a couple of reasons, but one of them being it's a really weedy area. I just get a lot of weed seeds in this section, I think partially from the bird seed maybe, but also it's quite a tricky area to sort of manage. So I'm thinking, I grew lettuce in containers last year with the pot half filled with manure so that it helped keep all that moisture, and it worked so well for me because I was able to move it into the shade if it got really hot so that the plants didn't bolt and go to seed. And I just really enjoy growing in containers, so I think all my salads this year are going to be in pots. I'll probably put my beetroot in the ground still, but it's just going to be a fun little experiment to do something different and see how much I can grow in containers this year. Yes, it is more work with the watering, but sometimes it's easier to manage in terms of weeds, and also it's going to help smother this ground for a year so that, you know, none of the weed seeds germinate or blow onto the soil, and hopefully get it a little bit cleaner for next year. So that's my thinking. Got the seedlings growing, not ready to be going out just yet. Whilst I was just chatting away then, I just saw a massive bumblebee enjoying the blooms on my blueberries. Now that I've just given this a feed, it should boost it along quite nicely. Probably only feed it once a year really with that liquid feed, just to keep it ticking along, and mulch it with some ericaceous compost. Because don't forget, whilst your containers have got compost in them, it does very slowly decompose, so that level's dropped a little bit. And whilst I don't want to be filling it up with loads of compost that it rots the trunk of the stem, we will be topping it up with just a little bit, just to give it some more little nutrients and to keep the acidity that it likes. Not much to say about my strawberry cages, but this one's looking much better than the other one that's covered in ground elder. But I kept the lid off because the honesty just wanted to grow and grow, and I didn't have the heart to rip it out. So I'm just letting that one flower free until time comes that I need to protect the strawberries from the birds, and I'll put the cage back on top of it, which is why this one's sort of double caged at the minute. But yeah, that one's just got loads of ground elder in that I need to take out. Oh, the joy. You may notice a new addition to the plot this month in the form of this great big archway, and it's got a bit of a weird bend in it. I need to somehow fix that, but I'm hoping to grow loads of squash in this section, as well as a few other things that I've not yet figured out. Possibly the Kobe scandens, that flower that will vine all the way up and over. I do have 3 arches in total, so I've got 2 more to make. I'm not sure whether to extend this one tunnel so it's like a double by strapping 2 together. I'm not sure, but I'm excited to be making more use of the space by growing vertically this year. And whereas in previous years I've had my squash mountain, this time we're going even higher. We're going to the skies. I just want to see loads of squash dangling from it. But otherwise we've got alliums in here for now. And no flowers yet, but oh, look down there. You can see the great big flower bud is growing, and it'll only be a matter of weeks until these are all flowering. Underneath the apple tree we've got loads more spring bulbs in bloom, lots of daffodils and tulips. This here is one of my currant bushes that I always forget is here. Can't remember if it's a red or a white currant, but it's got some lovely little flowers there. And what else? Lots of weeds. I've got lots of thistles that keep blowing over from neighbouring plots, so they're becoming a little bit of a problem, but never mind. And the rhubarb is enormous. In fact, I might harvest some of this because look at those big juicy stems. Oh my gosh, the crumble is calling. Just look at that beautiful apple blossom, and the tree is covered in it. So it looks like it's going to be a good year for apples, as long as the frosts stay away. Oh, hello, the camera's on the wrong way round. So here's the Roald Dahl rose, and can you see that bud there, just about to burst? This is going to make a fantastic shaped shrub, I think. Right here, in front of the apple tree, on that corner, and it's going to bloom that apricot-y orange. Can't wait. And we've got lots of hellebores that are generating their seed pods now. Oh, and this beautiful butte. Mind out the way, hellebore. It's part of the nettle family. Makes a fantastic ground cover. The bees absolutely love this flower, and I love the foliage too. Isn't it gorgeous? It's really bulked out this spring and just sort of fills that shady spot with gorgeous plant. But yes, these hellebores have now generated seed pods, and it's at this stage when they're actually perfect for picking and putting into a vase. They won't go droopy, unlike if you cut them when they're still fairly fresh, like that one. Here's the apple tree in all its glory. When this blooms, it's honestly one of my favourite things on the allotment, and one of the things I look forward to most. But down in the wildlife corner, the hellebores still haven't given up. We've got lots of lupins, and all of the herbaceous plants are just about to romp away. There's the brunnera, pulmonaria, and my oregano. Look at all that fresh young growth. And at the back, my new pittosporum. It's going to really do the trick there and fill in that gap where I don't get too much privacy, because I can see straight through to the neighbouring plot there. But that should fill the gap quite nicely. Just look at that combination. We've got a bright green lupin and then that hellebore Anna's red in front. I love those colours together. And here's the plot from the shed. Oh, I can hear some long-tailed tits in the distance. Can you hear them? Oh, they're coming, they're coming. Oh my gosh. One of my favourite birds. Oh, okay, I don't know where they've gone. But you'll always see them flying around in like groups of 5 and 6. And they're like the acrobats of the hedgerow. They sort of spin around on the branches and they just look super, super cute. And they sound nice too. In front of the shed we've got lots of rubbish from today's work. This blue bucket of turf is where the bindweed infected turf is, and oh man, those birds are so distracting. We've got this lovely bed here, and I've started to plan out what's going where with all my wedding flowers this year, and I've decided that this is going to have some of my taller plants in, such as the amaranth, and I'm going to build a bit of a support system with this bed. Because it's got the wooden edges, it's going to be really easy to make a bit of a framework around the sides to give it a bit of strength and wind support, essentially, so they don't blow over and snap. Let's go admire some of these gorgeous tulips. And a lot of these are actually from previous plantings. I haven't planted any of these in the autumn just gone. But some of them have suffered, and I'll show you in just a sec. Just gorgeous. And I don't really like red. I don't know how that red slipped into my colour palette one year, but there you go. Red and white, my grandma would have me for that. Blood and bandages, she'd say. Now next to me here I've got a pot of tulips that aren't looking very happy at all, and that's because they're suffering from a fungal disease called fire blight. Now I've heard a few other people have had this with their tulips this year. They're not tulips that I planted fresh, they've been in this pot for a few years now, and you can see from the foliage that they've got this weird sort of white marking, sort of speckles along it, and the blooms have been affected as well. So these bulbs are no good anymore, and the best thing to do is to take them out along with all of the soil and put it in your main bin, not your compost bin. Take it home, keep it separate from everything else, because fire blight is a disease that's born in the soil. So if you've got it in the ground, you should probably dig out some of the soil as well if you want to plant tulips there again. If you just want to plant other things, then I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. But I will be probably tipping away all of this compost now, because I do like to use my pots for bulbs, particularly the tulips, and I'll be giving it a thorough clean with a bit of diluted bleach as well. But it's a shame, but I have had these ones for a while. So this is what fire blight is. If your bulbs are also affected, let me know. Thankfully, the massive bucket that I planted last autumn is not affected, and it looks absolutely glorious. I mean, this is going to be incredible once it comes up. I can't even remember what colours they are now, but they've all got flower heads on them. Oh, look at that, we've got a parrot tulip there. So don't worry, if you miss it, I will make sure I capture the full bloom for you guys. A lot of you have been asking about my pond and asking for a pond update and are the fish okay? Well, I've lost 2 of them, so I now have 2 fish remaining, and I've got to say I probably wouldn't recommend that you use this fish for an outdoor setting. In fact, it has been spread out in the news of fish that we shouldn't be keeping them outdoors. I didn't know this because I'd seen other people do it, but yeah, we shouldn't really be keeping these fish outdoors, so bit of a faux pas on my account there, but here we are. So I've always got this mesh over the top of it now to try and stop anything, including birds, from dipping their feet in, to try and prevent try and prevent birds from standing in it, which could then transport things like the fish eggs to other places. So yes, I still got 2 in there. It's probably about time that I give it a little bit of a tidy up, because we've got a few bits of leaf debris in there that I need to clean. But otherwise I have started to feed the fish again. And the Sarracenia still looks pretty dead. Maybe it didn't make it through that really cold snap that we had, but I will cut back the old tubes and see if we get anything new come up. I just realised I haven't tied in my clematis, which was one of my jobs. And also, a bit of a sad story, my blue tits, they're not back yet. I don't think they're going to nest in there this year, which makes me really sad. I haven't done anything to it. I mean, I haven't disturbed it at all. The only thing I have done differently is that I haven't actually cleaned it out over the winter. Normally I take out all the old bedding, but because I saw that the male, or I assume was the male, was sleeping in it overnight throughout winter, I didn't want to disturb his little setup, so I kept the bedding in there. But they've not returned yet, and I normally expect them to be back and forth quite a lot. The blue tits would probably be laying about this week, so a bit sad. Hope they're okay. Now, as for tying in my clematis, it's quite a simple job, but I've just bought myself some flexi tie, which is like a stretchy, plasticky, elastic kind of stuff which you can reuse time and time again. And I'm going to use this for my climbing rose as well once it starts to climb. But I've got a lot of foliage behind the frame there that I need to bring forward so that it climbs up and fills this gap with gorgeous flowers, and also disguises the absolute mess that's behind here. Well, we've all got a messy corner, right? So I'm going to just tie it onto here. I've got a climbing rose on here which I recently gave a really good prune, and it's just put out so much new growth in result of that. I'm going to get a lot of flowers I think on that this year. Now this clematis is one that I cut back hard every February because it's a group 3. Let's try and tuck some of them around the front, because last year most of the flowers bloomed along the back. Down in the seating area I've converted the bench back into the picnic table back into a bench and put on it my small collection of aces. One of the bad things about working at a plant nursery is whenever there's nice plants on the reductions, you just can't help but buy them. And these are just absolutely stunning. And perfect for my little shady area. So I'm thinking of getting some nice pots and potting them around this back area, which has just gone a little bit wild with all the suckers that come off the tree. But what a view from my lovely little bench. I can sit down here. Oh, any guesses at what my bricks are for in that empty bed? It's where I've been planning out my dahlias. So this section's going to be where my dahlias go. I've got a lot to go in there, and even more probably than where there are bricks. I think I've got about 35 dahlias to plant. Let's head up into the polytunnel and see what seedlings we've got. Oh, and look at that cherry blossom. Absolutely beautiful. And the crab apple behind. We'll have a closer look at those in a minute. What's growing? What's growing? It's getting rather full in here. So let's have a scan of the seed trays, shall we? Right at the back we have zinnia, a white one, can't remember the name. Down here we've got all my straw flowers. I had to buy some white seed for the white straw flowers because my packets that I had and some that I was given unfortunately didn't germinate. Straw flowers are really fussy and you do have to have fresh seed, so if they're not coming up that's probably why. So lots of straw flowers. We've got some calendula that I sowed a few days ago. Come on, focus. Nasturtiums. And then we've got the beetroot that is actually just coming up above ground now. That's the beetroot Moulin Rouge, one of my favourites. And now this tray's got my statice, more flowers in peach and white. And some straw flowers again, and then I've only just sown my squash in here and some peas in root trainers, and then at the back there is an ornamental grass called Brisa maxima. I've also got some coriander, and then this is a lovely little Nandina seedling that I saw at work. It was growing out of the gravel, and so I thought, well, I could pop that up, see what it does. And then here we've got some salad leaves that are just coming up. Look, I can see some specks of green. More straw flowers, so you can see a theme. And then down here we've got the dahlia corner. And this isn't even all of them, guys. It's terrible, I know. These are just the newly planted ones for this year. I've still got more to pot up. It's going to be a colourful year, that's for sure. My fig is looking pretty happy. Might get that outside soon, enjoy some fresh air. And my lime is also perking up. Still haven't fed it, really should. And another fig that I was given. Over here, what have we got? Some lovely little cosmos varieties, including Purity, Gazebo White, and Apricotto, which is a new variety from Chiltern this year. We've also got my scabious, the drumstick scabious, and the Rebecca Sahara mix. And I've also got a few more ornamental grasses down there. That's my favourite Panicum elegans frosted explosion, the more scabious, and some leftover nigellas that didn't go out where I've planted them. I'm getting out of there because it's quite stressful in the polytunnel right now. You don't know where to tread because there's just stuff everywhere. Oh my gosh, The smell of this blossom is incredible. Oh man, it's spring. And the bees are with me here as well, enjoying it. Oh man, if you could just bottle that smell and sell that, I'd be a millionaire. I just want to enjoy this moment. You know what I really need to get is some of those netted sleeves for protecting my cherries from the pigeons, because even when the cherries are still green, the pigeons peck at them and I never get any. I really want some this year, so I think I'm going to do that. I'm just surrounded by blossom. This is just incredible. So last month my crabapple here, this pink one, was budding, and now it's just starting to bloom, and it's such an incredible vivid pink colour. You can see it from a mile, and it's just covered in buds and flowers. Oh, it just makes me so happy. I'm not sure of the variety because it was here before me, but I know that you do get a variety called Malus Rudolph that blooms like this, and it also has this burgundy foliage when it first comes out. I think there's also another one with Royal in the name, but I can't remember right now. But just look at that incredible colour. And it's covered, absolutely covered. And yes, I hard pruned it a while back, chopped it right there, and as a result I've got all of this gorgeous blossom and stem as a result. I much prefer it this shape than the lanky tree that it was trying to be. It was a very odd shape before, but now it gives me a bit of screening from my neighbours. And just look at that. Oh, I feel so lucky to have this right now. And the bees are enjoying it now, and the birds will be enjoying it in winter when all of these flowers turn into little crab apples. Also, I forgot to mention I planted out my nigella over there, look. So that's how the plot is looking on the 17th of April 2023. I'm going to enjoy this sunshine a little bit longer, I think, before heading home. Such a gorgeous evening. But thank you for joining me for a spot of gardening today, and also for the tour. Next month is going to be a busy one for planting out. That's when our risk of frost is completely gone, so a lot of crops will be going out into the ground. The potatoes will start coming up through their pots, and the dahlias will start appearing as well. There'll be loads more flowers in bloom. We'll see the lupins, hopefully, maybe some of the alliums. There's just going to be so much to see and grow. So thanks for watching. Let me know how things are going in your area, wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you real soon. Bye bye.